Hello CS112, today we'll be going over a quick solution to Lab 4 which has to do with loops. To give you the rundown, essentially you are given a savings account with a specific interest rate and you are to calculate how long it will take you to get from your current or initial balance to reach the target balance. We gave you this nice little formula here on how to apply the rate to your current/updated balance, whatever you want to consider it. And then we gave you a couple of examples as well as the outputs, so on and so forth. So for example, if you were to call your function calc_years with these three parameters, you are to return a string that says years required to reach the target balance and 7. So I'm just going to now dive right into the code. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, since we are trying to calculate how many years it's going to take, I'm going to set a variable. If I can type years with a lowercase y, please, set that equal to 0. Now, a good rule of thumb I like to use when deciding which loop to use, whether it's a for loop or a while loop, because either can work here. Whenever I know I'm iterating through a container or a range of numbers, so there's kind of like a predefined number of iterations, I would use a for loop. If I'm iterating a variable amount of times, so I'm iterating dependent on something, some input, something like that, or until a condition is met, that is when I would use a while loop. And since here we're going to be iterating a variable amount of times to count how many years to reach the target, I'm going to use a while loop. So I'm just going to say while and have my while loop set up here. So now while what? Well, we're going to want to count the years it will take for initial balance to get to the target. So I'm going to just use my initial balance variable here. So while that is less than or equal to my target value, what am I going to do? Well, the very first thing I suggest you do when creating a while loop is first update the variable so you don't forget to do that and accidentally get a infinite loop. So this is actually where we're going to be using this formula that was given to us up here. So I'm going to say initial balance equals initial balance plus initial balance times the interest rates. So you could have created a new variable called current balance and use that here, but I'm just going to stick to using the initial balance because the initial balance is kind of, in my mind, the current balance. So my current balance is going to be continuously updated until it reaches target. Now the case that you wanted to preserve the value of the initial balance, then you should create a third variable to keep track of this, but you didn't have to for this problem. So now that we are making sure that we do not have an infinite loop, we actually want to keep track of the years. So I'm going to increment years. So years plus equals 1. And what am I returning at the end? Well, I'm returning a string that says years required to reach the target balance. And then I'm going to just say plus and then str years. So I'm just going to go ahead and run it. Let's see if I can bring these test cases up a little bit. Control S to save it. Python cat.py, and as you can see, I did get the expected outputs here. Now the reason, my reasoning for having a tab here is because in the expected output, it did kind of show the number to be more than one space away. You weren't required to have this tab here, but I just threw it in there just to show you that you can directly return a string like this. This would have been a really good one to, if you guys aren't understanding how this thing is iterating, it's a really good one to just plug into Python Visualizer, which I showed in my last video, and show how everything's being updated within this loop, and then when it would exit the loop, sort of the whole control flow and structure inside of here. But if you guys do have any questions, do let us know down below.